Hey everybody, Kerzac here again. I'm here to bring a rather special kind of review. Today I'll be reviewing all of the Combaticons, but I will be doing them each individually first, and then kind of breaking up the reviews, but it's going to mainly be like one long review broken up into smaller pieces. So it's going to be a little bit interesting. Also, because I'm doing an extra long review, I'm not actually in my backyard today. I live in Florida, it's too hot outside for all this. It's the middle of summer as far as Florida is still concerned. So inside we are, not as good lighting, but I'll do my best. So I figured we'd start off with the actual vehicle comparison for everybody. I will be starting off in this order, starting with Blastoff, then Swindle, Vortex, Brawl, and then finally Onslaught, and then we'll do Bruticus. But the best way to start, I felt, was to show off all of them together in vehicle mode. And you can see, of course, they all look pretty good together. They look like a pretty fearsome force. I think definitely the best vehicle mode probably goes to Brawl. He definitely looks the most like his original character while also having a pretty decent vehicle mode, but we'll get to him later. But they do look all good together, so let's get everybody else out of the way now. Vortex and Swindle. So finally we'll come to Blastoff here. Go ahead and remove his accessories. So we just see him by himself. And he looks, well, he does look like a Blastoff. Blastoff, of course, in the cartoon was a space shuttle, hence the name Blastoff. Here, he's a fighter jet. And of course, that's because they were reusing the aerial bots mold. And in some ways, this makes sense because all the Combaticons are based on military vehicles. You know, we have a military helicopter. We have like a military we have a tank, of course. Swindle's like a military little jeep, and then of course Onslaught was like a trailer truck that carry stuff such as Brawl and Vortex. And Blastoff being a shell didn't really make much sense, but the G1 figure was a shell. Here he's a fire jet. I can kind of understand what they were going for, trying to make him more match the others, plus not having to come up with another new mold when they already had to make Brawl. So, but he's also pretty clearly just an aerial bot. Like, there's nothing changed about him. He's literally a repaint of Quickslinger, I think he was called for the aerial bots. The one who was an exclusive that was really expensive to get for the Combiner War set. And the one that we originally got replaced with Alpha Bravo. Because even the head isn't a new mold. It's just, like, they didn't remold his head for Blastoff. In fact, they didn't even use the head. That makes sense, because Blastoff has a, we'll get to that later, but Blastoff had a mouth plate, and this figure doesn't. But, you know, we'll get past the what if free and look at Blastoff himself. And he's pretty nice looking. He's a little brown jet. He still has all the same detailing as the aerial bot. The paint is a little bit different. We have like some kind of gunmetal gray going down the edge of the wings, followed by silver and purple stripes with the Decepticon sigil. Looks pretty good. Same kind of gunmetal gray going up the tail fin there with the Decepticon sigil again. Little tail fins here. Some light purple, lavender purple for the cockpit. Looks nice, except for the split down the middle where the plastic is. Do have a little rubber nose cone. Mine's a little off center from sitting in the box. Might be able to fix that. And along the bottom we have a robot folded up, so kind of all the expected stuff when it comes to plane Transformers. He does have some accessories. He has this little gun, which is once again from the aerial bots. Now instead of black, it's gray, done with gunmetal gray paint. Very weird, but looks good. You can peg it under the wing. Unfortunately, this was before Siege, where we have all that multiple peg hole stuff, so it can really only go under the wing like that. Same with the hand-foot weapon. Kind of looks like a double-barreled flamethrower of some kind. You can peg it on the other side. Double weaponry. I don't see how he's going to fly with all that, though, but you can put both weapons on him at least. And he does have some landing gear. It's no wheel, and there's no back landing gear. He just sits on like the tips of his feet, what will be his feet. And that's all there is to him. Not bad, but he's not great. Combiner Wars definitely feels kind of feeling its age at this point compared to like a lot of Siege stuff. It's pretty solid looking leg mode, not too bad. With how, considering it's using most of the jet, it actually does make a really solid leg compared to a lot of later figures like we got in Power of the Primes. And there you have your arm mode. I'll go over articulation when it's combined with Bruticus, but once again, pretty decent looking arm. As far as combiner pieces go, Blastoff here is actually pretty good. And there you have Blastoff in his robot mode. And he actually looks pretty good. I mean, for somebody who's not technically supposed to be part of the Combaticons with this kind of mold, he actually looks pretty good. They did try their best to kind of make them look like the traditional Blastoff. For size comparison, we'll get to the full robot mode of all the other Combaticons later when we get to Onslaught, but Here is a modern Seeker Earthfry Thundercracker, not Starscream. You can see he's a head shorter, so he still falls into like the deluxe class compared to current Voyagers. And like I mentioned before, he is a straight up repaint of Quickslinger, so he has Quickslinger's face. So this is a little bit unfortunate because if they had used, say, Fireflight, he actually would have looked like even close. He would actually look closer to Blastoff because Blastoff in the cartoon had like a goggles and a battle mask look going on. So I don't know why they chose to use this head, especially since the mold is exactly the same, pretty much exactly the same for both, except for the head. So I'm not sure why. I mean, he does have the goggles. Got the sunglasses goggles kind of look going on, done in lavender there, and he does have gunmetal gray for the face, and that all looks good. I just wish they had used the other head. I guess because the flat sides actually look a little bit more accurate to, like the actual head sculpt, except for the mouth, looks pretty close to Blastoff. So I guess that's what they were going for. I don't know why they could have just crammed, say, Vortex and Blades' head on there, but you know, there's always something to complain about. But no, he looks pretty good actually. A lot of new stuff has been exposed. You see some detailing on the arms, some gunmetal gray for the hands with a little blaster sticking out. A nice like metallic purple done for the lower waist here, which just makes it really shiny, nice looking. Same with the gunmetal gray right here and yellow, and some yellow on the shins. And I do like how they break the legs up. And of course, gunmetal black or gray for the feet. So all that looks pretty good. Articulation is pretty standard for Combiner Wars. Ball jointed head, so it can look all around. Ball jointed arms, so full rotation and all that. Swivel here. Plastic ratchet for the elbow, so you can get 90 degrees and it actually holds pretty well. It's a little bit wobbly, as you can see, but it's not loose. Do get waist, although how it's centered looks a little bit weird, so certain directions does make it look a little off. So just all up to you on how you want to use it. Ball jointed hips, so you can go forward and back. Go out that far, swivel at the lip right below the ball joint, 90-degree hinge at the knee, so all that good stuff. Stuff that was pretty standard by the time Combiner Wars came out, although the waist joints are much appreciated, but those are also mainly for the arm mode, so that's usually why all the Combiner Wars got pretty decent articulation. And of course, you can bring in his weapons, and he can hold them, and he looks pretty good holding them. And that's about it for Blastoff. He's your traditional Combiner Wars figure. He's Fireflight, just repaint. He's Fireflight with a remolded head, or Quickslinger repainted, whichever way you want to say it. Pretty standard stuff. You could store the weapons if you want on the back, much like how Fireflight could. Like so, if you want. But yeah, pretty decent figure. I still wish they had come out, like, now we have the Prime Wars Blastoff, but he's so expensive, like, this guy isn't too cheap either. I think he's around $40 online right now to get it. But the Prime Wars trilogy one, the one that's more accurate to the cartoon, costs a lot more. It costs like $150 now. It's ridiculous. So it kind of up to you which one to get. If you're looking for cheap, definitely go for this one. If you want accuracy, go for the Prime Wars trilogy. Pretty obvious stuff there. And moving on to the next review, we have Swindle. Combiner Wars Swindle, and you can see he is a little Jeep, much like his G1 figure. He looks pretty good. This is a remold of Combiner Wars Rook, who seemed kind of random at the time as a replacement for Groove. Seemed like a lot of the problem children of the Combiner Wars series got replaced. Blastoff got replaced. Quickslinger Roger got replaced because they didn't want to do two of the same mold, ironically, on the same team, I guess. And of course, Groove Origin was replaced with a new deluxe named Rook. And the nice thing about these two is they aren't immediately obviously repaints or remolds. Like, it is a major amount of remolding. As you can see, this was a 6-wheeled vehicle, this one's a 4-wheeled vehicle. But even looking at it from the top, you don't see, the only thing that's kind of similar is even from the top are where the pegs landed. The heads are laying, and then you have the shoulders for the robot mode kind of sit in the same place. That's really the only giveaway. Even the wheels, despite the fact the front and back wheels match the same spot, because this was done with a black peg and that was a yellow peg, it actually makes the wheels look a little bit different. I mean, you can still see that it's definitely a reuse of the mold, especially when you're looking at it from the bottom, but there's so much heavy remolding and change of colors and just change of shape. But they did a lot of stuff to make these two look different from each other, and I really appreciate that. It's pretty extensive, even where the shoulders are the same, they have extensive remolding to make them look different. it's a very good reuse of the mold to make it look quite different. Or I guess you could say Rook is reused in this mold because this probably was meant to be Swindle originally. He was also repainted in the Hound. I don't have the Hound figure. I didn't like having characters who weren't combiners as Combiner Wars figures if I didn't need them. So this is my Swindle. This is just Swindle to me. But you know, he does look pretty good. He's got like some little bags detailed in there. You can see the Jeep isn't too believable because his arms are kind of filling it in. You can see the fist sticking out right there. So it doesn't look the best, but they tried. You know, got a little bar detail going all over. I wish they had just put windshields in if they're going to leave it kind of filled in like that. Just put some dark windshields over it. That would make more sense to me because even the original Swindle had a windshield at least on the front. So I'm not sure why they went for this open Jeep approach if they were supposed to have a bunch of junk on the inside. But you know, that's how it goes. The bumper always sticks out a little bit because it's a paint. It's black plastic, I believe, painted over for some reason, and the paint matching is not quite right. It's always looks a couple shades darker and off in yellow tint from the rest of the vehicle, so it's always going to stick out a little bit. But I do like a lot of detailing. I just wish it had a little bit more paint because all the paint pretty much went to just the bars and the bumper. And a little Decepticon sigil right there. He does have weapons. He has this little gun right here. And you can hear him, it's like a little tri-weapon. It kind of reminds me of the Viacons from Transformers Prime. You can either mount it back there, or the main mounting spot right here in the middle, which I think it looks pretty good, especially since it has that triangular look. Gives him a pretty decent looking gun. Makes it look like he's dangerous despite having a smaller weapon, since it's a little Gatling gun style weapon. He also, of course, has his combiner hand foot. And you can fold it up and kind of mount it like this. And I think that looks pretty cool because you can aim it upward and turn it and all that. But it does actually have a peg hole, so it can actually be mounted in the same spot as the Gatling gun. You can see that actually pegs in right there, which also made a lot of people think originally, since you could do this with Rook 2, make them think that this was going to be the tank. This was going to be Brawl originally, not Swindle. So it kind of put a lot of people off track. And then you can still mount the gun on top of it. So you can definitely make a very dangerous looking Swindle. I mean, he's got like dual flamethrower type weapons looking here, and then he has a Gatling gun on top. He's ready to mess somebody's day up. So don't mess with this merchant. So, looks pretty good. And there's your foot. Pretty standard leg. You know, people talk about how the Stunticons are just a folded up car, but Swindle really does take the cake on that, where it's literally just the bumper folded down with the connector port sticking out. But on the flip side, it does make a very solid leg. I mean, it's just the vehicle mode, so it's already solid. So, pick and choose your fights with that. Pick and choose your battles. There's your arm mode. And he makes a pretty good looking arm, actually. It's really rare to get both a good looking leg and arm out of a figure, and he still looks pretty good. The shoulder looks a little janky, it's a little bit junky with hollowness and all that. But it's solid. The actual lower arm is solid. It looks solid. It's very square. And there is some new detail underneath that was hidden by the hood earlier. So it all looks pretty good, actually, even if you flip it around. Oh, you have all the hollow bit showing, so... But it's a good looking arm. So we'll cover articulation when we get him attached to Bruticus. And there you have your Combiner Wars Swindle in his robot mode. And now we have Swindle in his robot mode. Let's go ahead and get comparisons with Rook out of the way. As you can see, they are very clearly remolded of each other. A lot more clearly here than they were in vehicle mode. But there is still a lot of differences here. I mean, the chests are remolded differently, except for the only thing they actually share detail-wise from what I can see is the detail on the pelvis right here, this little circular detail, and the detail on top of the connector port, and then the wheels. Everything else, oh, and then like the arms, like the middle piece of the arms. But everything else has been remolded in some way to look different. You know, like even the sides of the chest, the arm, the top, the shoulders there, the bottom of the arms definitely look different. The back kibble's definitely different. Even the back of the legs. Oh yeah, and the hips look like they're the same too, so... Only parts that really don't matter that much or stick out that much seem to be sharing pieces. Other than that, it looks pretty different. Swindle unfortunately does not share the gimmick where Rook can actually attach stuff to his fist and have it sticking out, like giving him giant hands and stuff. But on the other hand, his fist, he actually molded in his fist so he can actually hold stuff normally, so... Makes more sense for Swindle, but I did need to show the comparison between the two. And Swindle himself's pretty nice, you know. My big complaint with him is mainly just how his leg detail is handling, because I mean, there's detailing to save on plastic, and then there's just hollows, trying to make hollowness look pretty. You know, like there's this hollowness in here, but it's at least hidden to the side. There's hollowness underneath arms on a lot of figures, but once again hidden away. This is hollow plastic strip in the front where you can see it, and it really is just hollow plastic trying to look pretty. There's no detailing that makes sense. It's just holes in his legs, but they tried to make it look different. So I'm not too impressed with that. I'm not too happy about it, but what can you do? It's Hasbro. The head sculpt, though, is pretty good, though. It does feel kind of small, because since he is using Rook's mold, he has a pretty beefy-looking body. Rook had kind of a football helmet thing going on to kind of help him look a little beefier with it. Swindle has his tiny little head that does look a little bit odd when you look at it proportionately, but it still looks like Swindle. Definitely looks like Swindle. One problem with it is on mine, the ball joint's a little too big, or the head part's a little too small. As it sticks on there, but you start messing with it, and it slowly rises up and eventually just pops off. But it does give me an easy way to look at Swindle's head. Big purple glass-looking eyes. Little mouth done with metallic black, like gunmetal black kind of colors, gunmetal gray. Same with the helmet. Oh, looks pretty good. He does have the bar detailing from the Jeep mode on his arms, and that looks pretty good. So I paint the arms good, unfortunately, but it looks good. A lot of purple on the chest, and a little bit of blue to help break it up. I like the wheel kind of. I wish there was more purple on him. Swindle, that's one of Swindle's two main colors, is yellow and purple, and there's very little purple on him. Like, even just a little bit on the arms, I think would have been nice. And I've already talked about the legs, and the feet kind of are just a bumper, so nothing too fancy, but he's a good looking figure, just he has some issues. Articulation is pretty standard. Ball joint to the head, so he can look around if it doesn't pop off. Can look up and look down slightly. Ball joint at the arm. Swivel here. Elbow that goes a little just over 9 degrees. Swivel for the waist that works as an arm joint for combined mode. Ball joint to the hip. Swivel here, and then a knee joint. And then this was actually still pretty exciting back in Combiner Wars. I know with Siege and Earthrise this is pretty standard now, but he actually has ankle tilts. So you can actually have his legs spread out pretty far. Like, it goes out that far. And I know by today's standards that's actually kind of a bad ankle tilt, but back in Combiner Wars era, in the early Generations era, we didn't get foot articulation that much. So this was pretty exciting, actually. That's what made this mold so great. Probably the reason why people bought Hound in this mold is just because it was a good mold and it was good articulation at the time. It was really good articulation, so can't really blame anybody for wanting him for it. Yeah, he can hold his weapons. Give him a flamethrower and a Gatling gun. Pretty dangerous. Can also mount them on his shoulders. Once again, extra points to mount weapons weren't standard in Combiner Wars time, so once again, kind of Siege before Siege was a thing. Not as good as a Siege figure, but you can kind of see the start of it here, which is pretty cool. So yeah, Swindle's a good figure. He's honestly, out of all the Combaticons, he's probably my favorite. He's a really good figure. So I hope you enjoyed this review, and we're going to be heading Vortex next. Alright, now we're on Combiner Wars Deluxe Class Vortex, and of course he's a reuse of the Alpha Bravo and Blades mold, the helicopter. But I honestly feel like he was originally made for Vortex, because he has the missiles on the side, and the original Vortex figure had missiles that you could attach to the side of the vehicle mode. And you know, Alpha Bravo was a character they made up just to fill in the aerial box without having to reuse Firefly's mold, until they later released Quickslinger, all that mess. And Blades is a medic helicopter, so unless you want to say they're like extinguisher missiles, they kind of don't make any sense on him. So I really feel like this was a mold originally built for Vortex specifically. And he looks good in it. They definitely did the good him service of all the paint they gave him. You know, the front, both the top and bottom of the windshields are done with black. You get some black from the nose cone that goes underneath. If you move the arm missiles out of the way, you can actually see a purple stripe going all the way down the side. The missiles on the outside of the arm are actually done in yellow. Those are yellow paint there, and that looks pretty good. And you get some purple on the tail fins here with the Decepticon sigil on both sides. So pretty well painting, looks really good. Since I brought Blades, we'll do comparisons side by side. Both good looking helicopters. And I do like how they painted Vortex's bottom part, just because it does help differentiate him in paint styling. Plus his stripe is straight while Blades goes upward and goes all the way to the back. Even the stripe on the tail fin is different. His is a lot thinner on this side, and the Decepticon sigil is normal, while this has like a special rescue symbol. So yeah, it helps differentiate them quite a bit. And, you know, both have a robot head on the bottom. So we'll get blades out of here. This isn't a head review. This review is for Vortex. And we're going to bring in the classic foot hand that's actually a double Gatling gun. Really powerful weapon. And for this, you can just peg it on the bottom. And it actually gives you a little stand. And he sits on it just fine. Looks pretty good because, of course, he's also flying. You can actually aim the Gatling guns downward and can actually turn them around. So it's actually a really nice mounted weapon. It just looks a little big on him. And he also comes with this gun that you just mount to the side right here. And it looks pretty good. He's a heavily armed helicopter. I mean, he has 6 missiles. He has a gun up here. He has double Gatling guns. You would not want to fight this thing in the sky even if you were an aerial bot. So quite dangerous. And, of course, his blade spins. Spins pretty well, actually. It does, however, hit the camera, apparently. But yeah, spins pretty well. The back tail fin doesn't spin, unfortunately. But that we already knew about that with Alpha Bravo and blades. So yeah, pretty good little helicopter. He's really nice. He's kind of fun to mess around with. So we'll go ahead and give him his foot mode. Pretty standard stuff. Arm mode. Doesn't look bad. It doesn't look great. There is a way to fix it, though. Me personally, I'll take the rotor, and it doesn't get in the way of the arm. If you just fold it in like you do with the leg mode and just fold it up like that. I like to fold the tail fin out like this. And there's even a fix for your arms I personally do where I just untab them, fold them in at the elbow and put them off to the side like that. And yeah, they're not tabbed in anywhere, but they make they kind of cover up the mess that's going on here where the tail fin folded up. So they kind of help cover up that little mess of transformation there, and it gets the missiles out of the way of the elbow joint for the combined mode. So I think this is honestly the best way to handle this. My waist joint on him is a little loose, so that means I have a loose elbow joint for Vortex. Not the worst thing in the world, but pretty good looking arm if you handle it like that. I have Vortex in his robot mode. Let's start with his head, and looking at it, you can kind of see what I was saying about why Blastoff's face is being a little weird, as between this head sculpt and the Firefly head sculpt, I really don't understand why Blastoff didn't just borrow one of those. Like, Clickslinger really doesn't make any sense looking at these two. But that's for Blastoff. We're talking about Vortex right now. And for comparison, here he is next to Blades. So you can see he does have a different head. He has a much more menacing looking head with the giant goggles and the mask and everything. Actually looks like what you expect a helicopter pilot to wear. And there's a lot of paint differences here, you know. He mainly just had a little bit of silver here with some silver on your side of the chest. Vortex actually gets a fully painted chest with multiple colors. You know, purple here on the top of the chest, some purple right above the hips, red kind of filling in the middle section above the crotch, and then a little bit of yellow right in the middle to kind of help break it up. And the yellow of the missiles even kind of carry over to his arms to kind of give him some gauntlets kind of look. It looks pretty cool, actually. Unfortunately, that's where most of the paint went. There is some paint for the visor, which does look good, and I like that the rest of his head's all one color. It kind of gives it a very solid look. And just some paint left over from vehicle mode for the purple streak on the side, and some black on the foot for the windshield of the helicopter. So a lot of the paint's kind of left, some of the paint is left over from robot mode, but so much paint on the chest does make him look very nice. And it's really cool to see that much paint on a figure, especially in Combiner Wars. And here he is next to a modern Voyager, or Fry Thundercracker, of course. So yeah, he's got a lot of paint and he looks pretty good. You know, it's a helicopter mold, and helicopter mold is pretty decent. And it's a good figure. You can give him his weapons. Hold a Gatling gun there, and you can give him the other gun, which doesn't look good from this side, but we're going to peg it in on that side anyway. You can say the missiles still shoot off from his arm, so he still has 6 missiles, so he's still just as heavily armed as he was in helicopter mode, and he's just now in land. As I really can't see him flying with all this folded up like this. Even if you folded this out, it's, yeah, you ain't flying with that. He does have storage for his weapons, as you can peg them into the backpack on the other side, though they still stick off of him and kind of get in the way of the arm articulation. So not perfect. But his articulation itself is pretty good. He has a ball joint at the head, of course. We can look up. Can't look down very much due to how where the ball joint is. Ball joint is his shoulder, so you can go there, go outward, swivel. Plastic ratchet for the elbow, of course. You do get a waist swivel, but it might bump into the rotor, so you might want to bring that out a little bit. Leg articulation is ball joint at the hips. You can go back that far if you get the rotor out of the way. Oh. He's got really loose. his leg swivel's not wanting to go. Haven't used it in a while, I guess. There we go. Leg swivel, really tight mushroom peg. Hinge at the knees, just shy of 90 degrees. And you can technically get some foot articulation, but it doesn't really do anything, unfortunately. But yeah, that's Vortex. A pretty good little figure. He's not perfect, but the helicopter mold really was never perfect. But I still think he's pretty good. He's a nice little figure, and he fits Vortex very well, especially in his vehicle mode. So I highly recommend him, definitely. Especially if you're combining Bruticus, of course you're gonna get him. But he's definitely one of the highlights. Him and Swivel are definitely the highlights of the set. So I hope you enjoy this review, and the next one will be Brawl. And now we're going to move on to Combiners Wars Brawl. Hopefully the lighting's a little bit better. I adjusted things a little bit. Noticed the videos looked a little dark, so hopefully things are a little bit better. So now we're looking at Brawl, and he is, of course, a tank, much like his G1 counterpart. And unlike his previous counterparts, pretty much the entire rest of Combaticons, he doesn't have a previous remold. This actually is a new, at the time at least, was a new mold for the Combiner Wars series. Though he was later reused for the drill tank, I don't remember, Nose Cone. For Nose Cone in the Compitron combination. But even that looks quite a bit different, so he does look pretty good though. Let me remove this piece. For his accessories, actually, his gun's actually the front of the tank. So you could pick it up here, but of course you're going to want to just slide it back into here. And it gives you a tank. Unfortunately, the turret doesn't move. It can aim upward, like how it hinges in there. You can actually aim the cannon upward like this, which is pretty cool considering how they actually managed to get that work. And the actual turret can kind of aim upward like that, though. Yeah, obviously that's for transformation. Also reveals Brawl's head that's just kind of looming underneath there. And it does have wheels. Doesn't roll too good. Oh, I forgot to discuss whether Swindle rolled or not when I was reviewing him. He does roll pretty good, so. But he does look a pretty good looking tank. It's got the nice detailing for the treads underneath. Everything's nice military green. A little bit silver on the back there to break it up. I do think there should have been a little bit more silver, maybe on the front or on the sides. You kind of get these like blue headlights right here. It's a sigil there. On that side, each side of the turret has a sigil. Nothing really too detailed along the back, but it doesn't look bad. I really like his handgun and how it gets worked into the vehicle, as of course you could just peg it on top and like any other vehicle would, like, you know, handgun. But what's really neat, as you saw at the start of the video, you can actually peg it in. The thumb actually folds in. There's this little trench right here. And this whole mechanism folds back, and you can fold the guns down, and it actually kind of looks like his G1 guns. As the G1 version had two giant guns that kind of folded over the top and pointed forward. So that's actually really neat how they worked that in there. That actually looks, it hides the hand really well because these do just look like guns. I don't see the thumb anymore, you can't see the fingers underneath. You wouldn't immediately think this is that hand-foot gun piece, so that's a pretty neat integration. I really like that. That's the best of the whole Combiner Wars series as far as I'm concerned, as far as handgun integration. It's really neat. So yeah, that's the vehicle mode. It's pretty nice, pretty nifty little vehicle mode. You have the leg. It looks like a tank. It looks pretty good. You can fold the turret down, but you know, it depends on which way you want the turret. Personally, I prefer it up here on the kneecap. So that's the leg mode. Not too bad. Pretty solid leg. And I do try to kind of turn everything so where it still looks like the solid half of the upper tank. But now you just have parts hanging off everywhere. Nothing really has a general shape. You have a lot of hollowed out plastic shown, especially on the bottom part of the arm. I hate how this looks. It's much like how Rook's arm mode looks. It's not a good arm mode. Use him as a leg. Just use him in his robot mode. And he's okay. Unfortunately for Brawl, his best mode definitely is his leg mode and his tank mode. And here, I don't know why, but he has such a weird look. Like, I mean, look at him from the front, he looks alright, but the moment you look at him from the side, what happened? Where is half of his torso? Why did they go for this weird strut mechanism that just leaves him with part of his torso missing? You can kind of fill it in using this connector bit, the arm connector, leg connector. You can actually fill it in slightly by flipping it out, but still leaves him like with this triangular design. Like, I mean, once again, when you look at him from the front, it's not too bad. He looks fine on it. Especially if you're just sitting on a shelf, he looks fine. But when you start, especially when you start messing with him, starting to realize how easy it is just to make his whole lower body just fold out. I don't know why they went for this kind of design. There is another fix. You can fold in the bottom part and kind of have like that, and it does make him look a little bit more solid, even when he's standing there. But it does also make him quite a bit shorter, as if we say grab Vortex here, who we reviewed previously. You can see he's now a good head shorter than Vortex. Meanwhile, if you fold it back out like it's supposed to be, he's in line with how tall he should be. So let's kind of pick your poison. You want him to be a little bit shorter, or do you want him to have a ridiculous looking waist? I really don't know what they were going for there. But he does actually have quite a few ports to work with. He does have sidearm ports, so you could plug his the hand foot gun on the side and give him like a flamethrower. You can tank the front of the tank cannon. You can put it in his hand. You can hold it as a gun. Doesn't look that bad. You can also take it and plug it into the arm. Also doesn't look that bad. Doesn't look great, but I don't think it looks bad. You can also, of course, if you're doing tank tray, you can leave it there, but it does leave the cannon to kind of stick out a little far. If you want to shorten it, you can actually peg it a step shorter, and it actually does shorten the cannon a little bit, so looks proportionally a little bit better in robot mode. You see how much he just kind of flops around from that waist piece. Like, there's nothing really locking that hinge in, so he easily bows. Like, I really don't know what Hasbro and Takara were going for with that. Well, I should say Hasbro, mainly, but it's such a weird look. I don't know why they would do something so ridiculous as this waist piece. It's like the biggest fault for me with the whole Combaticons set is that waist just makes no sense. But articulation is pretty good. He has a swivel, no ball joint at the head, so just swivel only. Arm articulation's alright. You have rotation. You have double hinge inside of the arm, so you can, but even with both hinges, you can only go out about that far. You have a ball joint at the elbow, so rotation, and it does work as an elbow. You also have this joint back here you can use for a little bit, but only going backwards. You do have waist articulation. I guess this is what the joint's good for, because you do get an ab crunch, a really good ab crunch, and it works. I mean, it's an ab crunch, that's for sure. So if you really want to, he has ab crunch articulation, so that's at least a good benefit of it. Ball joint at the hips, so outward too. Swivel right there. You do have a knee, but it's one of those invisible knees where it breaks up the leg, which looks not good. And he does have actually good foot articulation. That's the sad part about it. He actually has really good articulation, as of course it could go like that, so you can actually have the ankle rocker, so you can actually spread the legs. But you also have these hinges here from where he transforms. You can actually use them to give him stepping poses and stuff. You have to pose with it a little bit, the hinges sitting properly, but you could get some more dynamic posing with him, as you can see. And once again, at Combiner Wars time, this was a big deal. This was definitely a major step up in articulation. So I want to recommend him, especially with articulation. You know, you could say he has an ab crunch. He has a lot of ankle articulation that was really uncommon, especially even for Combiner Wars. But at the same time, he just doesn't look good, especially from long angles. He's not too great to mess around with. I can't recommend him on his own, but of course you're going to want to get him with the set, and with the set, he's great. So Brawl is an alright figure. He's probably the weakest of the bunch, but not the worst thing I've ever seen. So we'll be moving on to Onslaught next. And now finally, we're on Onslaught. And at first, he might not actually look like a remold. He actually looks like a pretty interesting little tank truck kind of going on. And especially since, you know, he is a remold of Hotspot, and you bring in Hotspot over here. And yeah, at first glance, maybe besides the wheels, they don't really look like they're too much of a remold until you do this with Hotspot. You look at the front there, and yeah, suddenly it's pretty obvious that he's a remold, you know, especially if you get back here and he has the little purple sirens there. Especially once you get down to the underside and, you know, flip Hotspot chest piece where it's the same, and yep, that is definitely a reuse right there. Now, granted, they changed a lot. Like, how this piece sits on here is completely different, as Hotspot's actually clicks into the back here, while his is actually on this little tab mechanism that sticks him out in the middle. So there is a huge difference between him and Hotspot, at least in vehicle mode. Robot mode, it's a lot easier to tell that they were reused, but here, it's actually a very different little tank truck. And It's an interesting way of doing the vehicle. It's alright. I don't think it's as good as the G1 version, you know, the old tanker. You know, he can't haul anything on the back there unless you put like a very small Legends back there or something. He's definitely a very different kind of vehicle. This is more of this is less trailer carrier and more armored truck with a few tank pieces attached to it. And if you do fold up the fins over here, you can actually kind of get the turret moving. But you do have like a lot of kibble, especially from where Bruticus' head is hiding, kind of sticking out. But you could move it around like it's a little turret, and it's a pretty dangerous looking turret. You know, double barrel, quadruple barrel guns, call it kind of two small ones. As far as the front goes, I'm guessing these are supposed to be like where the drivers would sit. Like one would sit here, one would sit here. And there is a split right here. Hotspot had the same problem too, but that's also where he put his crane at, so it hit it really well. Here it's just sitting there. It's not only out in the open, it's also at the very front where it's extremely noticeable, so not the best. Also, he has the fist sticking out right underneath. Once again, Hotspot did it too, but once again, it was at the back of the vehicle. When you have it front and center here, it doesn't look as good. But, you know, I do like the armor detailing here. I like the little bolt detail on top there. I do like how they managed to hide all the armor and the head. I mean, yeah, the head's still sticking out the top there, and, you know, this is pretty obviously the armor bits for Bruticus, but most of it's actually folded up pretty nicely into a nice compact little cannon looking detail. I mean, there's actually some bits here, like you can actually rotate those up, and as I mentioned before, you can rotate this part. So it's a pretty workable cannon. At least it's a functional one, even if it's just obviously used to hide combiner kibble. The back actually looks pretty good. This parts are just his feet folded up, you know, with hollow showing on the inside. There is some little armoring detail right here. I'm not sure why he would have the purple lights. You know, for Hotspot, he had the red lights here, which made sense because he was a fire truck, a crane truck, you know, emergency vehicle. I'm not sure why Onslaught would need lights, especially in the back here when you really couldn't see them with the cannon in the way. You know, obviously it's probably just leftover from Hotspot, but I'm not sure why they left them there, other than just to give him shin guards when he's in robot mode. And, you know, Decepticon sigil there, and one on the other side as well, so I like it though. It's alright. I like the blue color. I like how they hide up all this. It's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. It's probably the weakest vehicle mode out of the 5, but I like how they reused Hotspot and flipped them around to make a new vehicle. I like how they handled all the combiner stuff becoming a giant cannon and how it actually does still function as a cannon. Not the best, but I can see the effort. I think it's a good amount of effort. They tried their best. They could have done a little bit more, but I think they gave it a good old college try. Alright, now we got Onslaught in his robot mode. We can take a closer look at him. Go ahead and get comparisons with his remold or what he was remolded from. Here he is next to Hotspot, and you can definitely see in robot mode, yeah, the general shape is definitely reused here, you know. Right down to the sirens on the knees, but there is a lot that has been changed and remolded. As far as I can see, the only thing that was completely kept over is basically everything above the feet right here, all the way up to the chest right there is reused. It's all exactly the same, just different colors. Same with the arms, all the way up to the shoulders, so pretty much all the lower extremities were reused as far as detailing. But the shoulders definitely have different detail on them, being a little more solid, kind of military look to it rather than these bright striped colors. The chest is definitely different, having a lot more circuitry detail and having Decepticon a nice big spot for Decepticon sigil. And of course the feet are different. You don't have the front of the vehicle like that. There you have these little feet that actually look like little feet. So I think they actually did a pretty good job trying to get, even where the guns sit are different. Like on Hotspot they sit a lot lower over there, while on Onslaught they stick up pretty far, as would be expected of Onslaught. So I think they actually did a pretty good job just trying to remold as much as they could while also keeping the general mold. So yeah, he does still have the little spring details, kind of help separate his arm out from the armored pieces. He does still have the little bits of detail on the legs, a little crotch piece looking detail. But he looks pretty good. His head actually is very Onslaught-y, you know, he's got the little cap like the G1 version. He has the red visor, the black mask. Very, you know, super soldier kind of look to it. It is a very tall head. You don't realize how tall his head actually looks. It's not circular, it's a very oval shaped head, or I guess rectangular head in this case. And then of course on the back he has all the combiner stuff still folded up, but once again still kind of looks like a turret. You can rotate it around if you want, but then you have that bit sticking up, so I just leave it like that. Gives his gun sticking up. Carries the Onslaught, the OG Onslaught outline. Let's go ahead and get comparisons and robot mode out of the way. So we're going to bring everybody back in now. Get everybody straightened back up. So here's Blast Off to kind of get the group shot started. Let's see, here's Brawl next up. His head done, fell back in. Kind of have to get them all straightened back out. There's Brawl there if he wants to stand. Grab Swindle. He'll go right there. And finally we'll grab Vortex, of course. And I'll adjust the camera so we can kind of see everybody in the group shot. And Brawl, please don't fall over. Why are you giving me problems now after your review? Is it because you're not in the spotlight anymore? But there they all 5 Combaticons all together. They look good together as a group. You know, they're all different colors. They all stand out pretty well. But they also all have a unified look together. You know, they all share some purple except for Brawl, but most of them also share some kind of green or brown. There's a certain look that it says they're a team together, but not completely unified team. So it's a pretty neat little look. Let me get everybody back out of here. Y'all will be seen again in the next review when we get the Bruticus. But for now, it's Onslaught's turn. So, articulation, his head can swivel. It's a pretty tight one. Ratcheted shoulders. Can go forward and back. Can go outward there. Could also go outward here. So he's got 2 different joints there. Does have an elbow joint, and then he has 2 elbows. He has one here, and one here is a swivel between them. So he actually has a lot of articulation arm as he has an elbow there. Then a swivel, then another elbow, so he can actually make it look like he broke his arm or something. But it also allows for a double elbow joint, of course, so he can fold his arm completely pointing up. Nothing at the waist, unfortunately, just because of how he transforms. This does move on the hinge, of course. You can have the kind of guns aiming upward more if you want. You get ratchet hips, going forward and back. Different ratchet going outward, very heavy ratchet. A mushroom peg swivel there. You get a really good knee. About, I want to say it's more than 97, what, 120 degrees? So yeah, about 120 degree knee there. And you do get foot articulation technically, but you know, what you're going to use that for. And his knee came undone. His leg doesn't stay together as good as my hotspot does. But you know, it could get a little neat, little tiptoe there if you want, but it's really hard to do, so I don't really count it. Of course, you can unpeg the guns from the back here. And put them in his hands. They want, oh, tight fit there. So you can give him his guns, that's his weaponry. And yeah, he looks pretty good. My only complaint is that it's hard to use his outward leg articulation as he doesn't have any kind of ankle tilts. So you're kind of just relying on him staying on the corners of his feet. He really was kind of just to stand there all stoic, just pew pew, pew pew, bing bing, you know, just stuff like that. Stand there, shoot, command the others, form Bruticus when needed. So yeah, Onslaught's a pretty good figure. He's definitely a reuse of a hotspot, but I think they did reuse it very well, and they did make it still stand out very well on his own. There's only one last thing to do, and that's to get him into his torso mode for Bruticus. So now we have Bruticus in his robot mode. You can see he's a really big guy. I mean, he is, you know, kind of give you an idea of scale. Earthrise Thundercracker. Can barely even see him on camera. At the head, you know, Thundercracker comes up to about right here where the silver and purple stuff is at, so yeah, rather short compared to a big old guy like Bruticus. And since they do share 3 of their 5 combiner components, I do want to bring in Defensor. It's hard to get them both in on camera though, so I might have to bring the camera back a little bit so you can see both of them. You can see I kind of put Rook and Blades in the same spot that Vortex and Swindle sit, so quite the difference there, especially in color. Even especially in the torso too. That they, other than the legs, we wouldn't really immediately recognize them as being the same toy. So, and I don't have Superion, I don't have Manosaur, I don't have Computron, but I do have Abominus. So we can get Abominus in there next to his Decepticon buddy Bruticus. I think Abominus is actually a little bit taller. Although he's a lot leaner too, so Bruticus definitely brings in kind of the muscle of the Decepticon combiners. without looking a little ridiculous like Minosaur. So yeah, this is in combined mode. Of course, they can scramble city and switch these components around. This is just the basic kind of look for Bruticus. Whenever you see him in cartoon, he's almost always got Brawl and Swindle for legs and Vortex and Blast Off for arms. And I think this is how he looks best anyway, so I'm going to kind of leave him like this. I'm not really going to cover his alternate look, just I really don't think it matters that much. But he is looking pretty good. He's a pretty big figure. He's got everything you expect from Bruticus. He does strangely have like a black head, when I think in the cartoon and in the toy he has a gray head. I'm not sure why they were going for black. It might be an IDW thing, but I'm not sure. I do like how he handled the chest plate. It's definitely Bruticus' chest plate with kind of look like a little airship. It's all done in gray, a little Decepticon sigil there. I really like it. In the cartoon, he has this as the same color as his Blast Off for some reason. Like it's all brown and purple. If you want that look, you can either buy a third-party kit, or there is the Takara Unite Warriors version, but good luck finding that guy. He's really expensive now. And of course, he still actually has his little cans sticking out the back, so they're not quite as big as they should be. Bruticus had big old cans kind of sticking up, but they are there to complete the look. There's all kinds of third-party kits you can buy to kind of fix that if you want. But yeah, I think he's a pretty good-looking combiner here. He has the same detail as Defensor here, just done in purple instead of red. Other than that, though, that's really the only detail I can really see immediately. Even how the shoulder's done, because Defensor shoulders are done more like that. And you can do that look with Bruticus too, but it does get rid of a lot of the solid. It does make him a little less solid because his arms aren't, the shoulder pieces aren't clicked in anymore. But I know there's plenty of people who prefer that look because they don't like little shoulder pylons, so you can do that if you want. Me personally, I don't mind the official look. I actually kind of like it to kind of help him look different than the Defensor. And it does make him look a little bit more stocky and powerful to me too. Maybe slightly anorexic because of how thin the waist kind of gets there, but not too bad. Still a pretty good looking figure. Articulation wise, it's a little difficult to show off, but head is on the ball joint so you can look down. Can't really look up, but I mean, who's he gonna look up to really? Or maybe Devastator. Do get a swivel so you can look around, and you can, like I said, you can look down in almost any direction. Do get ratcheted shoulder. You can go out that far on this side, and you can go plenty far with Vortex. Rotation at the elbow using the waist joints. Double elbow. If you get the wing out of the way, you can double elbow in almost any direction, but most of the time it's still going to reach 90 degrees, really. But it does work. You know, hands can swivel, of course. You can open them up. Fingers can move. Thumb does have those hinges to where it can go up and go outward and all that, so however you need the thumb to move. Nothing at the waist, unfortunately. You open that up though, and you can get the legs going. You can go forward and back on ratchets. You get a knee swivel. You can say you get an ankle swivel too if you want to say that. Ooh, he's a heavy thing. You can also switch the hips around like this if you want. I know I've seen a lot of pictures of him kind of displayed more like this with the thinner looking legs. Can be a little tricky to do. You might have to bring the little crotch cover out a little bit. Also depends on who you have for the legs, because you have these two for legs. They kind of bump into each other. But I've seen plenty of people kind of go with this look instead if they want, and I don't think it looks bad. Definitely gives Bruticus a less like chunky leg look, but it's hard to kind of keep him standing like this. So I'm just going to switch him back to the official combination, but I did want to show, you know, you can do all kinds of things. You can adjust the shoulders, you can adjust the legs. If you have the time and you want to mess around with it, there's all kinds of little ways to make him look a little bit better in your eyes. So, but yeah, he's a really neat combiner. I really like how he looks, especially the eyes. Like just those red eyes, just penetrate you, man. I mean, that sounds dirty, but they just get to you. He is also supposed to have Shockwave, you know. They kind of include a Legends class with each of the combiners. You know, you have Power Glider, who went with Superion as his weapon. Defensor and Minosaur had Blackjack and Groove as a Legends class to kind of work as their armor pieces. Bruticus had Shockwave, so you could have a big old Shockwave gun. I didn't buy that Shockwave because, you know, not in scale. I'm a kind of scale junkie when it comes to that kind of stuff. At least close within scale is what I prefer. But yeah, that's Bruticus. He's a really neat combiner. I like how he is solid. I mean, nothing fell off, not even the weapons. Might have to readjust the shoulders a little bit, or smaller pieces like the arms that might be a little loose, but I mean, nothing is coming off of him, even while that's shaking. So that is a pretty sturdy combiner. Even if you don't like how he looks, like I said, there's all kinds of ways you can adjust how he looks, and I still think he's a good figure. So, this has been Kerzac. I hope you enjoyed this series of review of the Combaticons and Bruticus. It's been fun. It's also been really tiring, kind of doing these back-to-back. Had a little bit of a break in between when I did Brawl and Swindle, but I think it did turn out pretty well, and I hope you enjoyed the reviews. Hope you have all a good day. Take care.